Hey guys, so today you and I are going to talk about following things. So let's get into it. So the question in question was, Frederick, do you follow anything in your professional projects which you wouldn't care to follow in your personal side projects? Dear God, yes. There's tons of stuff. Uh, Off the top of my head, Next.js is not really something that I would follow privately if it wasn't because I use it for work. I would also probably not know a single thing about other front-end frameworks like tools like Emotion or a lot of the CSS in JS solutions, things like that. I really wouldn't know anything about it. I think when it comes to like backend projects or things like that, it would probably be safe for me to say I wouldn't know anything about Argo, maybe if we're like in ops. So wouldn't really need that for anything for my personal projects. Like there's a range of different things that I don't really follow, and this is sort of the thing that you have to track to a certain point if you want to be able to work in certain companies. There's luckily enough, it's not that often that I'm in a situation where I have to learn something that I'm not all that interested in knowing just for work purposes. But as I was saying, like these higher level frameworks, for sure. Like I would not be, as I was saying, learning like studying Next or something like that, or learning about Emotion and CSS in JS solutions and things like that for personal projects. The reason being, it's not that these are bad. I mean, I use Next as well, as I said, mostly for work purposes, but that's more because my personal projects haven't really put me in a situation where I would benefit from Next, if that makes sense. I'm one of those people who have I've reached a point where the skills that I have acquired are at a level where a lot of the convenience things that a lot of people like are more a bother to me, because I've found a simpler way, at least for me, to deal with the problems that I have, and I know them so well that it's slower for me. It's in a sense, you could think about it as the keyboard layout, where there are more optimized ways, perhaps, or more efficient ways to lay out the keys, but when you have a muscle memory or you have invested in this thing, you're actually going to have to relearn a lot of stuff in order to do things in a different way. And so an example would be, when I first started doing Node.js many years ago, Express was the only game in town, really, and of course that's the thing I started with, and so I learned a lot about Express, and then Next.js comes along a lot later, and so for me, I've already learned how to do without Next, and a few things that Next does isn't really the thing that I like. Like I don't really like the thing that they're doing, and so if you can imagine, it's faster for me to set everything up the way I want by not using it, for example. But I've been using it for long enough now that I sort of see that, yeah, if I really need like a simple, say, React application or something like that, I need to set all the things up, then this is a perfectly good, I would use it, right? It's just that for my personal projects, it's very rare that I'm in that sort of situation. It's the same thing with CSS and JS solutions. I think that the only time I would use such a solution is if I'm using something like Material UI or something like that, where it's almost to the point where you have to use something like that in order to do anything in terms of like custom styling or stuff like that. But if I'm not doing anything like that, then I use, for example, BEM, because plain old, in my world, BEM is superior in every single way, simply because it is something that I have. It's a tool that I have learned to master, and I feel very comfortable with it. But I also understand, of course, that for larger scale projects there are different considerations to be made, and those trade-offs are always very important to understand, I argue. And it's one of those things that really shows, in my opinion at the very least, when I work with different coworkers. It shows me how far have you gotten in your development and maturity as a software developer, because the people who usually are very dangerous to leave alone on a project are the people who can't separate what they like in their own project and what's good for the majority of people that you're dealing with in a software project. And this happens quite a lot, actually. I've been in many situations where I can very clearly see that this person here has made decisions these are just emotional decisions. This is just this person basically trying to recreate their favorite workflow in a company of many, many people, and this product has suffered for it to the point where now it's actually a problem, whereas it would have been more efficient for them to take a step back and just go, yeah, this might not be my favorite thing in the world, but I understand that this thing here is probably the best thing, or the pragmatic thing to do. It's the thing that is going to cause the least amount of problems and probably be the stable solution for the most amount of people. And I do this very often when I talk to coworkers who have this inclination to try to replicate their own workflow, where I questioned them. Like just today I had a person who did this classic thing where there's a genre of people who think that you should label the intent behind every commit. So basically, because his personal workflow is that he goes to the commit histories and he has like his own thing that he looks at each individual commit and he tries to understand what each commit was intended to do, etc., etc. So this is sort of ingrained in the way he does his work. But I also know that that's not how I work. I know that the majority of people don't do that either, because each person, how you do commits, for example, is different. Some people do big ones, some people do small ones, some people mix things and so forth. And so if you're going to force, as I told them, if you're going to tell every single person, we have a rule now where you have to define with some type of pseudo syntax what your commit is about. Not just write a message that is clear, but like almost a label, like a show. The classic one is, I think this is bullshit, sure, feature, bug fix, hot fix. You have all these terms for this, and I go, there is no way that you are going to be able to make that a foolproof setup. In other words, your workflow that is based on that people do this is based on that people care enough to do this. And then you have the problem of, if you're mixing terms, if someone's not 100% sure what label to put here, your personal workflow falls to shit anyway. So you're now forcing people to do something just for your workflow. Yet I know for a fact that most of the people working here, they don't care about this stuff as much as you do. And that might suck for you, but for the vast majority of people, having this rule is worse than having no rule at all. So what I want you to take away from this is that I definitely have tons of stuff that I only follow for professional reasons. I was just giving you a few examples here, but there are other things, and I mean, these are not bad tools in any way whatsoever. It's more that I have to. I mean, these days I'm taking an entire course on Azure operations and learning all the different services on the Azure platform, because the current company I work for uses Azure, even though I personally think that working with AVS, or well, GCP is also pretty nice. I think that these cloud providers are, I mean, it's just my personal preference. It's a little bit nicer. But I find it interesting, and it is something that I need to learn for, well, in order to be productive at my job. So this definitely does happen, and I think that this is just my recommendation to you. Something that you really, really should figure out is if you have that ability to decide what's going to be the best solution for the company, or the best decision for the majority of the people that you work with, versus what is your own personal preference, and do a little bit of reflection here. And if you're able to do that effectively, I promise you, you will actually on average find that, at least what I've seen, on average your solutions and your ideas will scale better, and you will overall meet more success. Because the problem with people who want to recreate their own workflow each time for each new company is that when you do that, you're basically trying to convert a company to your personal workflow instead of trying to figure out what is the best workflow for everybody here. And the outcome is usually that you just you give up sooner or later. Or you recreate a workflow that somebody and that you own, and then you force everybody else to do it, and you cause a lot of tension because, hey, you're not the only one who wants to recreate their own workflow in the code base. It's just that now, because everybody's on your workflow, you're going to have to force everybody to do things your way, and that is not always easy. I promise you. Have a great day.